Welcome to Frankly Speaking Hurricanes Football with your host, Frank Mazdu. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Raymond Rosikowski to our video today. Ray's got a real rich history with the University of Miami, and he's got a lot of in-depth knowledge, and I'm just really honored to have him on our video today, and I'm really pleased to introduce him. And Ray, I'd like you, if you don't mind, just to give us a brief bio and some information about you and your business and what you do. So without any further ado, go right ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Frank. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. As you know, we met at my place of business in Homestead, Florida. I'm a chiropractic physician, strength and conditioning specialist, and we met at the office. And we provide full medical services and chiropractic services to the community. When I first got down to South Florida in 1999, I walked into the campus. I met Tom Moffitt, who was the strength and conditioning coach at the time, who spent the last, 18, 19 years at LSU. And him with Rob Phillips, and I wanted a job there. I wanted to work as a strength coach, and they hired me. And Butch hired me. I worked there for in 1999, during that season, and in 2000 I got my license to practice, so I had to leave the program. But during that time, I was there when some of the biggest names that ever have come out of Miami were there, and it was in the Hecht, and it was back during a time when Miami was very relevant. And we won a national championship, obviously, in 2001. Since then, I've been a season ticket holder. I have contributed to the university. I have contacts at the university. I have friends that are just part of the fabric of the University of Miami. And as an avid college football junkie and playing in college myself at Springfield, there's nothing better than a crisp, clean Saturday when you go to a football game, you get to enjoy a little tailgating, and then the crowd gets to you when you get in the stadium. So as far as my background, I do follow this every day. I have groups on WhatsApp. I have a very private website that has doctors and lawyers and boosters and called the West End Zone. So we talk about stuff every day. We tend to get breaking news before it's anywhere else, even on social media at times. I'm so happy to say that, Miami's finally moving in the right direction with what they're doing. And I got to tell you this little tidbit. I was at the Florida State game in Tallahassee on the 13th. And boy, did that have an old soul feel to the Miami-Florida State rivalry. There was a packed house. The crowd was loud. It was silent plenty of times at the right moments. But it really made you feel like, hey, college football is kind of back. This rivalry's back after the pandemic and COVID and everything else. It was a real pleasure to be there. So thanks for having me on your show today.
Oh, I'm really grateful and privileged to have met you. I went to your fine establishment. We went there to get some testing, and we sent all our people over there as well. And it's you have a great company, and I just want to mention that, and I would recommend it to anybody who's watching, okay? And by the way, lest I not forget, please like, subscribe, and go ahead and share our videos to anybody that you think might be interested in the content that we're providing. But I also wanted to mention to the audience here, Raymond, you pointed out to me several days before it happened, the whole thing with Mario Cristobal and the AD, the athletic director over at Clemson. Yeah, right when I met you over there, you were basically telling me days ahead of when it broke. So it was fascinating to me that you had a pretty good inside track into what was going on with the Board of Trustees and the administration. And I thought that was fascinating. And then in talking to you, finding out what a tremendous fan you are and how you had been wired in there, it was fantastic. So I'm really grateful that you came on our show, and I look forward to many, many more shows. And I wanted to get your insights as to where you think things are going now. We've got the AD in-house, and specifically the offensive coordinator, because you and I spoke off camera about that a little bit. I want you to share your thoughts.
Sure.
The OC and the DC, and any other information that you might have so that we can put it out there.
Sure. So, this has been a very interesting time at Miami because Miami has not invested like this before. They never had to. And they finally said to themselves, hey, we need to spend money to make money. So in order to get that done, you got to make big boy moves. And they did that. So Mario Cristobal was always the main target. I guess Lane Kiffin may have been number two. There have been some other names passed around, but Mario was always a target because of how he fits the University of Miami. He's one of the best, if not the best recruiters in the country. He's from South Florida. He played at the U. He went to Columbus. So for us to go pull him from Oregon was a big take. Now, obviously, after watching his press conference, you know the kind of fervor that he's going to bring to this university and the football program. So also with Dan Radakovich, it was going to be Tom Jurich. Tom Jurich got the votes needed to come in and be the AD here.
Okay.
However, there was a few hands in the mix, and I guess that got shot down for whatever reasons. But to pull a guy like Dan from Clemson, who's got 3 national titles, he's been there since 2011 or 12, I believe. He's a killer, and I think that this is what we need. We needed to up the brand level to closer to SEC level, Frank, and we did that with these 2 hires. As far as offensive coordinator, Joe Brady's the guy from everything that we've been told. I love it. I think that there was a bunch of names in the mix, and we all wanted a splash hire. And Joe Brady's the guy that developed Joe Burrow at LSU. He was the pass game coordinator. The offensive coordinator at LSU at the time was Enslinger. But Joe really was the guy that brought in Burrow to having one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a college quarterback in the year they won the national title. As far as defensive coordinator, there still is a little question mark in this area. There's a gentleman at the University of Georgia, Schumann. He's a defensive analyst there. We think that could be a good possibility of him coming in to do it. But some big names have been thrown around, and this name's been kept kind of tight. And I would be reluctant to give any names at this point because I don't want to say something that's not going to be coming to fruition.
Totally understood.
So, listen, the coaching staff now is going to be so much better than it's been. And again, as we talked about off camera, Manny Diaz is a hell of a guy. He's a really good guy. He wanted to win here. And I think people need to realize that some of the losses we've had that you alluded to earlier, brutal, just things that cannot happen at the University of Miami. He's a defensive guy. Our defense has kind of been the weak point of the program for the last 2 years at least, and we're supposed to be getting better. This year, we had the most experience coming in of returning starters of, I believe, almost every single program in the country, Frank. We had like 90% on offense and something close to that on defense. You can't regress. Players need to buy in. I don't think it's going to be a problem for players to buy in when Mario's here. As you can see from the way he speaks, from the way he commands the room, we already have been told that the whole entire aura, the energy of the Hecht has changed for the better. With Tyler Van Dyke returning, I do have a little nugget I wanted to share with you regarding the quarterback position. Jake Garcia obviously is our number 2 quarterback now, who's a dynamite player. In fact, a gentleman who I talk to every day, Kevin Brockman, goes by the handle True Baller. He knows, and I'd love to have him on the show one day, Frank.
Sure.
This guy knows more about recruiting. He's a dear friend of mine. He's a veteran. He knows more about recruiting than any person I know. He can give you the most up-to-date information on where kids are getting visits at, how likely they are to lean towards the University of Miami. As you know, Mario didn't even take his suit off when he was out recruiting down at Central. He then went to Texas the next day to look at a 5-star offensive lineman. He got right into it. But for Jake Garcia, the latest that I got today was that he's going to stick it out for 1 more year, but that there still is a possibility that he could leave and go to Nebraska.
Oh my! With Steve Frost?
Yes, Scott Frost. Yes.
It's Scott Frost. Sorry.
Yep. So he's, the latest I got was he's probably going to try to stick it out for another year, but it's on again, off again, possibly transferring to Nebraska. Tyreek Stevenson is going to return next season.
That's
which
awesome.
I thought was that's the info I have, and I again. My source, I stick to him. With Tyreek coming back, that's going to really bolster our secondary. Now, as you may have noticed, there's a lot of movement in recruiting now. A lot of kids have either left Oregon or decommitted from other programs or entering the transfer portal. I believe, and in talking with Kevin, that we are going to finish much stronger than if Manny was still the head coach. Mario he just has a way about him when you meet him, from what I understand. His recruiting prowess, even Nick Saban has praised Mario's recruiting prowess. So I believe we're going to close strong. I'm very, very encouraged by who the the positional coaches are going to be. Maybe on the next show, what we could do is break down each coach. If you want to do it even sometime early next week, I can give you, if it's not already announced, I can give you who the coaches are probably going to be, and I can talk about specific recruits. I know people do like to hear about recruiting. They want to know, hey, how many 4 stars are we getting or 5 stars? And even though those star ratings aren't the end all be all, it's still a good gauge. It still might sell tickets. I think that next year's season tickets will rise. I think the stadium will be packed. I'm sure you're aware of the discussions about possibly putting a stadium at where Coral Gables High School is. John Ruiz, the attorney who's making a humongous investment into the program now, and is part of the reason why we're able to buy out $8 million Manny's contract, buy out $9 million Mario's contract at Oregon, and then, oh, by the way, pay him $8 million a year, and also factor in a budget of between $2.5 and $3 million for coordinators and another 500 to 800K for analysts. That's coming partly because of the big players, the sophers, the John Ruiz now. He wants to put a stadium where Coral Gables High School is. I doubt very highly that's going to happen. The parking nightmare, US 1 Bird Road on a Saturday.
I agree with you, Raymond. I agree completely.
The Gables is not going to go for that. But And if you remember the Notre Dame game in 2017 at the Hard Rock Stadium, that was as good of atmosphere as I've ever been to. That was better than noon games of Florida State Miami back in 2000, 2001.
Oh, yeah.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I don't know if you were there, but
yes,
that
was the closest we've gotten to a national championship game on our home field. It was packed. It was loud. Listen, it reminded me of the Orange Bowl days, except in a better venue. And I think we're fine with the stadium. I really do. With Hard Rock, I think we're in great shape. But I wanted to get back to you, Raymond, on a couple things you mentioned.
Sure.
I want to get your insight. We didn't get a chance to talk about this, but with everything that's happening at Clemson, I know you have a unique insight. Okay, Venables is gone, right? I understand that the OC may be going to Virginia, so he's going to be gone. Their AD is gone. So give me your insights and your take on what you think is going to happen to Clemson, because you've got all these assistant coaches in Clemson that are basic. It's going to be torn apart, and there's no place to go. Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. So, well, as you know, Venables is top 3 defensive coordinators in college football. He's gone. The offensive coordinator, Elliott's gone. The AD now is gone. And so, what would I think? I would say this. Dabo is a guy that wins. He's been a winner. But as you can see this season, when he lost Trevor Lawrence and he lost Travis Etienne, there was a significant drop off. I think they still won 8 games or so. But you can see the quarterback play just dropped off. And because of that, and their defense was tops nationally. That's not as good as Georgia's, but was right there. I think that they'll be okay, but they're going to have to bring in some really, really good players. Obviously, they're going to spend money to find a good DC and a good OC and obviously an athletic director. They're going to spend money. They understand. Prior to us being the highest allocated amount for staffers and coordinators, now Miami is more than Clemson. We have vowed to spend more. Our budget's bigger than Clemson's when it comes to coordinators, staffers. They're going to say, sorry, we're the big dog of the conference. We're not going to let Miami, of all teams, do this to us. I believe they'll recover, but they're on a downward trend right now. It's going to take them probably 2 years unless the quarterback, comes and plays really well. I don't know if you saw him play, talented kid, but just didn't have that moxie, that he didn't have that same way of winning that Travis did. I think that basically you saw a guy like TVD come in after the second half, during the second half of the Virginia game on. Mm-hmm. Was there a better quarterback in the country than TVD?
No.
I don't know. Kenny Pickett's very good, obviously, but to break the ACC record for 6 straight games with 325 yards passing and 3 touchdowns as a redshirt freshman, I mean, come on, this kid stands in the pocket like he's unfazed. It's like Brady back there. I'm obviously not comparing him to Tom Brady, but he stands there. He likes big chunk plays. He commands the offense. He uses his reads. He checks down when he needs to. He seems to be, his height is a great advantage. I think Clemson will rebound, Frank. I'll tell you what, Florida State right now is kind of in a flux too, because they had a pretty good class right now. But I just don't know if the head coach is the guy. I don't know if he is the guy. They beat us, obviously, 17-0 lead this year. We come back, go up 28-20, and then Manny's defense, I don't know if he called the wrong defense or if the kids didn't just want it, but you could see that on a 4th and 14 play, I don't see how you allow that to happen to lose the game. And I think, again, going back to what you said about Manny, great guy, but people forget some of the losses. They forget the fact that the program has not gotten better, and also that he's getting paid a lot of money. People's feelings get hurt. His ego might be busted, but they just paid him $8 million to go away from the University of Miami in his capacity. He'll land on his feet. There's chatter about him maybe going to UF as some kind of defensive role. Randy Shannon just got elevated to an on-field level coach at FSU. Can't feel sorry for these guys so much as in, hey, thank you for your service. We paid you while you were here. Here's your buyout. But we've upgraded, and we've upgraded massively. And now the U is going to be a problem for everybody. Mario said it himself. We want to get to a point where people don't want to play us. And I think that you're going to see a big splash in recruiting, Frank, to close out. We've had some kids that have pushed off their date of announcement with all the things going on. Shamar Stewart, I don't know if you know who he is. He's a 5-star
defensive
kid.
end.
Yeah, he's the kid that's between us and Texas A&M. I talked to Kevin today via WhatsApp, and he was telling me that they have 2 5-stars, a 4-star, and a 3-star already in that position. And it would, to use his words, behoove him to come this way. Justin Flo, the freak linebacker, his eyes have opened up to Miami. Florida just had a 5-star quarterback decommit from their program. There's another kid from recruit from Oregon who also just decommitted, offensive lineman. Mario flew out to Texas yesterday to meet with an offensive lineman from Texas. He knows, him being an offensive lineman as well, he knows that winning big games against good teams starts in the trenches. And he's going to go out and get those kids. Mirabal, his offensive line coach, Alex, he's had great success with him. And Mario knows that it starts with the big guys up front to control the line of scrimmage. He's coached at Alabama. He understands what Nick Saban is built there. And if you watch Alabama play, if you know anything about them, now they're more of a pass-heavy team, but they've always been, hey, we're going to beat you at the point of attack, and we're going to run the ball whether you like it or not.
Yes.
And look at the formula that's been working for them. But again, it goes back to recruiting too. Even Mario said you got to get the talent. Even Kirby Smart said it. He says, you can't out-coach talent. And he's recruited just monsters. And I was very surprised at the outcome of the Alabama-Georgia game. I don't know if you were. I thought Alabama ended up handling Georgia, and everybody, after getting down 10 points early, and ended up being, they actually blew them out. Alabama is just one of those enigmas that, like even Kirby Smart said, Alabama just does that to people. Frank, I'm so excited about what this is, just the momentum of Mario, because the kids know the coaches in the recruiting circles. They know that now that Mario's at Miami with the resources that are going to be put in, and it's being put out there, the millions of 20, 30, 40 million dollars is going to be influxed into the program. And now the AD now, Dan, he came here. He's also vice president of football. And that to me says, okay, there's another twist here. And I think it has to do with branding. I think it has to do with, he also, one thing he wanted was, he doesn't want to have to go to the board and ask for money. He wanted, and he got a clause where after a certain point of time or a certain accomplishment, the extra money just kicks in. He doesn't have to go and ask the BOT or President Frank for more money. He made sure that in his contract, there was a clause that just after certain criteria are met or a certain time frame, or if he just wants to, he can dip into the well and get this X, Y, and Z done without having to ask. It's just going to appear for him. And I think that was part of Mario. And to people who say, hey, how do you hire a head coach without having an athletic director announced? I would say that these two guys talked. They talked behind the scenes. In fact, Mario flew out to meet with Dan and talk to him before Mario was announced.
Wow,
so,
that's news.
Yes.
That's breaking news, because I was not aware of that. That's pretty impressive.
Mario and Dan talked before Mario was announced? Because if I was Dan Radakovich and I was going to have a head coach hired before I was hired,
Right.
where does that put me in terms of making decisions? So there had to have been agreement and behind closed doors, and there was. In fact, I believe that I can just read off what it is that I was sent, so I can put it out there. It was the fact that earlier this week, Mario was in San Diego recruiting, and he cut his short trip and headed back to Eugene. Hours later, he was on a flight, not to Miami, but to Atlanta to meet with Dan Radakovich.
Wow.
So the next morning, Mario's named head coach, and the final pieces of the contract with Radakovich were being ironed out, which is when he was announced today. But Mario didn't spend any time talking about who his boss would be because he knew it already.
Wow. Yeah, because he would have to prove it. Why would he come if he's not going to know who the AD is? He had to know who the AD was before he inked the deal with Miami. He's not going to do it without knowing the AD. But I want to circle back real quick to something you said, which I find curious. I don't know if you've seen the reports. I realized that there was an induction into the Hall of Fame in Las Vegas where Dabo Swinney was present. But I don't know if you saw the photographs of Dabo Swinney in the suite of Mark Davis, Al Davis's son, in Las Vegas for the Raiders. I got a feeling, I'm not basing this on any fact or any insight. This is pure speculation, but I would not be surprised if Dabo Swinney took the job as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, since that position's opened up, because with everything that's happened at Clemson, I mean, it right now, you have to rebuild the program completely, AD all the way through. And when you're going to go out and get those coordinators, yeah, you need Dabo to be there to be able to do that. But you don't have an AD. You've got your entire offensive staff and defensive staff is going to leave with the coordinators. So I don't know. There's a little smoke there. It may not be anything, but I'm just curious because he's not happy with this name and likeness. He's not happy with the college football going to name, image, and likeness. And he said that he's not happy about the players getting paid. So this may be a situation where he bails. So we need to keep our eye on that. I just want to mention that to you.
That's an interesting point. You know, Dabo doesn't strike me as a guy. If now is the time to go.
Yeah.
If he's in his position, now's the time to go. Do you think that Dabo is a pro guy? You think he wants to deal with those egos? I don't know. I'm not convinced, but I'm going to dig and find out. And maybe we can circle back on another show and talk about this. But by then, it might even already be announced. Do you think that Dabo is a guy that's built for the NFL?
Well, I'm going to give you an interesting parallel. Nick Saban left LSU to Miami. Okay. And he left LSU in a down year and he went to Miami. He spent a year, maybe a year and a half at Miami, came back and signed the biggest contract with Alabama because your last year is forgotten. What's remembered is your success. And this whole thing with the name, image, and likeness and the AD part being gone, you know, and I've got to question whether Clemson's willing to spend the money. I mean, we know Miami is, and by the way, I heard, you correct me if I'm wrong, that the budget for the assistants was $8 million. That's the budget that they have for the assistant coaches, which, like you said, puts us way over the top. Yeah. Which is incredible. I mean, we've never done that. We've never done anything like that before. And I'm going to leave you, and then we're going to go on to something else, but I want to share something with you. Somebody asked me the question, why Manny? Okay, why not Manny versus Mario? And I said something, and it occurred to me something very simple. I remember with the Miami Heat, when LeBron James came over here and Pat Riley was trying to entice LeBron James and Bush to join D Wade. One of the things he did was he took the rings off his finger and he put them on the table. Now think about this. With Mario Cristobal, he's got 2 national championship rings as offensive lineman. He's got 2 national championship rings with, I think it's 2 with Alabama as an assistant coach. Yeah. And he's got 2 Pac-10 championship rings from the West Coast. So when
a Rose Bowl game win.
And a Rose Bowl game win. Exactly. There's no comparison. There's simply no comparison.
No, there's no comparison. And, you know, listen, it comes down to business, Frank. Miami needed to step up because in order to make money for the university, green notoriety, you need to spend money. They understand what big boy football is. And let me say this too. I don't think Alonzo Highsmith is done with his endeavors to become part of the football program. I think there might be a carved out position for him. And the next question I might have for you is, because none of us seem to really know, is what's going to happen with Ed Reed?
I was going to ask you, Raymond. I was going to ask you because I think, I mean, you're more wired in than I am, and
nobody knows. Nobody knows right now.
Really?
Yeah, they carved out that position for him. He wasn't there that much. He wasn't allowed to coach. He was more of like a cheerleader from afar, a motivator, a guy who's been in the trenches, no better safety, with the exception of Sean Taylor, maybe in the history of the NFL. But what's going to happen with the chief of staff position? Could that now be Alonso's position, which Alonso's had experience in the NFL as a GM, player personnel, a guy, talent evaluator, a scout, a guy that would probably come to work carrying a lunch box, knowing what it takes. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm going to try to find out about Ed Reed's position, and then I'll get back to you on that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was gone in that capacity. Because really, what point does it serve? We don't know what he's been paid either.
Yeah.
But still interesting. Wide receivers coaches, running backs coaches. Coach McClendon's coming over from Oregon. We talked about that briefly yesterday. That's a surefire win. I was sad to see Corey Raymond go and get hired at Florida. I thought that was going to be our splash defensive hire, not for coordinator so much, but maybe assistant head coach, director of recruiting, and cornerbacks coach. I hope T-Rob stays.
I do too.
I really do. I like Likens a lot. He's going to coach. I like him a lot.
Stay? Raymond, do you think he's going to stay with Brady coming in? Do you think there's a position for Likens? I'd love to see Likens stay. And what are your thoughts on Simpson?
I love Jess Simpson, first of all. Jess Simpson really helped elevate our defensive line play in 17, 18. He's a professional coach, caliber coach. Falcons, the guy gets a great job. He's going to actually be the coach for the bowl game. Likens is going to call the plays, and Jess is going to be the head coach for the game. I don't know. I heard Clint Hurt possibly. That might be somebody that could come in to coach the D-line. Kevin Patrick is a guy who I know personally, who used to handle my medical billing when he wasn't coaching. I'd love to have him come back. I am friends with Gino Torretta. We thought that Gino was going to be the AD. In fact, I was almost sure of it. I think me and you talked about it.
Yeah.
Things kind of changed. I think that they really wanted Dan and they wanted Mario, and they just did what it took to get it done. But for some of the old guys to come back, like Alonso, like a Kevin Patrick, you got to be careful bringing in players just because they're part of the program previously. But Kevin's a winning defensive line coach. Alonso obviously will know exactly what to look for in potential players that have NFL potential. I think I'm so excited about our recruiting. I think our recruiting is going to just take off like a rocket because of Mario, because of the money now being spent, because of all the upgrades now. There's going to be a lot of chatter in the circles, the coaches in South Florida especially. Remember, Mario wants to put that fence around Dade County, Broward, and Palm Beach. And I got to say, I think he will. And don't be surprised if you see some flops over to UM and some kids in the transfer portal, some big name players. But one thing I got to say is back in the day, you could have 3 quarterbacks that would be starting anywhere in the country. They'd all stay in Miami. Now with the transfer portal, you got guys transferring on a whim. Look at Spencer Rattler. As soon as he got replaced when they lost to Texas, when they almost lost to Texas,
That's right.
They benched him.
Mm-hmm.
And Lincoln Riley, man, you see how this is a business. Lincoln Riley just shoots off in the night like a ninja to USC, and Brian Kelly just decides not to coach the bowl game with the potential to go and reach the college football playoff. He's still left and showed up in Baton Rouge and decided to accumulate some type of instant Southern drawl accent when he was talking and addressing the fans there. But no, it's funny because we whooped him so bad that game when we played at home. I'm so happy about that. Anytime you can crush Notre Dame, Florida State, and especially Florida, it's a great thing. Well, and Ohio State as well. And that's another thing. Mario marched into the shoe this year early on.
Yes.
And beat a really, really good Ohio State team.
Yes, he did. That's a signature win. That's a signature win. Yeah.
At least regular season. He did have a couple losses that were like, he lost to Stanford and he lost to Utah twice in pretty bad fashion. But again, his quarterback was
injured,
not very good, and also injured. But the quarterback he had playing in those games, not very good.
No.
Um, I'm so excited. I think the U is back, Frank. I think it's going to be back. It might be 2 years before we actually win the ACC. I think we're going to win the Coastal next year, just in the fact that our defense is going to be different.
But wait, Raymond, I got to ask you, because
yeah.
On that one, I think that we have a really good shot at winning the ACC championship. I agree with you on the Coastal. There's no doubt. But think about it this way: Pittsburgh, they just lost one of their coordinators. Their quarterback, their quarterback's going in the NFL draft. He's not even playing in the bowl game.
He's a day one kid.
Yeah. So Pittsburgh, and then you've got North Carolina with Howell. He's gone to the draft. He's going to be out. Okay. And North Carolina is having their issues. Then you've got Virginia. Actually, you've got North Carolina State. Their quarterback is a pretty decent, but I think he's a senior also. So I think he's leaving. So now,
and Hartman at Wake Forest as well, I think, is also leaving.
Yeah, Hartman is leaving. Exactly. So right now, the only obstacle you have is Clemson. And I got to be honest with you, we play them second game of the season, and Clemson. And I got to tell you, Clemson, right now as it is now, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to compete because of TVD. You mentioned it. We have a quarterback. Every program has to have a quarterback. You have to be able to put up 35 points a game to be even a contender in this league, and we've got that. So I think there's a good possibility that we can beat Clemson in the second game. I also think Texas A&M is going to be a marker game. That's the first game of the season against Jimbo Fisher, and that's going to be telling for recruiting next year. And I think Mario can pull that off too, because we've got a quarterback. We've got a heck of a team. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I would like to touch upon that. First of all, I've been to College Station. It's a fantastic venue. The people are wonderful. The stadium is immense. It's electric. It's going to be a heck of a game. I'll be there. I can't wait to go. I agree with you. After how you've kind of put that together, Clemson's very vulnerable, and they're losing defensive players, especially their linebackers and a couple in the secondary. From a defense, it's very good. And we're going to be stepping up in offense. If you don't mind, let's touch upon who our returning players are a little bit.
Please,
obviously, TBD. Who knows what's going to happen with Jake Garcia? But beyond Jake Garcia, Ja'Cory Brown, the much heralded quarterback recruit, is set to sign with Miami. He's all in. Listen, running backs. How could you not have been impressed with Jalen Knighton and the electric play-making ability that he's brought to Miami? Small guy, huge heart. Don Chaney was hurt early against Appalachian State. We missed him. He was our best running back. As much as we, saw Cam Harris break some long runs and stuff, he just kind of didn't have the same mojo and the same way of running the ball that both Jalen and Don did. We have Cody Brown and also Thaddeus, a five-star kid.
I think Thaddeus is going to be a big surprise.
He's a big back.
Yeah, he's 225 pounds.
Yeah,
and Thaddeus is going to do. And if Mario gets that O-line that he's trying to put together, if he gets that O-line fixed, you're going to have a big-time back along with Chaney. Those two guys, and then you've got the rooster, like you were talking about, Knighton. You've got Knighton out of the backfield. And you've got that, thunder and lightning combination where you've got the thunder and you've got the lightning with these two guys. And at receiver, come on, man, Raymond, tell me, give me your thoughts on at receiver. We're loaded with an abundance of receivers.
First of all, I want to start off with Xavier Restrepo, because that kid is personified. He's a dog. He's a king. He's going to continue to get better. Keyshawn Smith. How do you not love the way that kid plays? He's super fast. He tries to catch everything. He basically does. You've got Jacoby George, who came on strong at the end of the year. We've got probably the two best tight end tandem coming back of any team in the country, because Will Mallory really stepped up his game after kind of a disappointing beginning to the season. And Elijah Arroyo, I don't know if anybody's salivating at his potential, but this guy's got the goods. And Dominic Mammarelli is more of a blocking tight end who's going to still help us out in the run game. And also at receiver, losing Harley Hurts. What a career he put together after his first two seasons, which were, nothing to speak home about. I'm really happy for him. Great kid. We have Brinson. Brinson is a big, tall kid. He's fast. How about Brashard Smith? He's a guy that you want to get the ball 10, 12 times a game to. He's going to be in the slot. He'll be in the backfield. They're going to hand the ball off to him. The offensive line. I mean, is Zion coming back? Is he a first round guy? Is he a second round guy?
I don't know. I don't know if Zion's coming back, but pretty much your offensive line, from what I saw, is pretty much coming back intact. Where we're losing it is the second tier players. The second string players, a lot of them are senioring out. They're out of the program. So
I hope Scaife does not declare because he was second team all ACC.
He needs another year, and I like Scaife a lot. Scaife needs to stay in the program, but Corey Gaynor's gone. He went in the portal because and we've got, what's his name, the kid that got hurt, Raymond, the guard that got hurt.
Jalen Rivers.
Oh my God, that guy's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, he's going to be phenomenal. Ja'Kai Clark is back, I believe.
Yeah, Ja'Kai Clark is back. Yeah,
Donaldson, I believe, is also coming back.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that, what a potential he's had. I don't see that killer instinct to get his body in the condition it needs to be. I can tell you this much: the new strength coach that's coming in,
I saw that guy. Hey Raymond, I saw that guy with the handlebar mustache. That guy's a monster. That guy's incredible.
I mean, he reminds me of some guys I know in the industry, and I never really had that kind of fire, but I'm excited about that and about the nutrition that they're going to focus on for the players. At a training table, Mark Richt brought the training table back to UM, and I think it's important. And they're gonna, if you heard Mario's press conference, you heard the analytics of science, the science of football, the science of nutrition, the certain skill sets they're going to analyze. And with his background, they're going to put all these little things together. They're going to make the kids compete, but most importantly, they're going to make them accountable, Frank. Mario's going to make everybody accountable. And if you can't buy in, you're gone. And it's just not going to be, we're not going to wait for you. We're not going to cater to you. Look, there's a lot of questions that weren't answered this year. Why was Derek King, again, a warrior, a kid we love?
Yeah, I love the guy.
Why was he playing hurt against
Alabama
Michigan State and against Alabama to start the season?
He was hurt against Alabama.
I know.
Now, Raymond, I got to ask you this too, because you've been around a long time. You know the program. Look, here's my problem with all of that at the head coach level, because the head coach is the buck stops there, right?
Sure.
Okay, you've got a kid like TVD that you've had for a year and a half. You've got King, who's fantastic, great player, but he was only 8 months removed from a major knee surgery. Okay, so the guy had some ailments, some shoulder issues before even Alabama. The guy was having issues. And my question is, how is it that you don't know what you have on your bench? And wouldn't it have been smarter to play TVD for 2 or 3 games? And I'm going to give you my suspicion on this.
Sure.
I think that we weren't a coach-driven team. We were a player-driven team. And I love King. Don't get me wrong. He was a warrior. He's a heart and soul. But I think King didn't want to give anybody a chance to start. And if he could get out on that field, he'd get out there on one leg, because he's that kind of a guy. And he got out there hurt, injured, and they let him. And the guys that are supposed to make the decisions are the coaches. You're supposed to be able to say, hey, son, you're doing great. You're just not ready. We're going to part. Because when we saw out of TVD, if he had started 2 or 3 games, there was no looking back. He's a better player than King. Don't get me wrong. I love King. Okay, Raymond, but you and I have to agree. TVD is a Sunday player. King is not a Sunday player in the NFL. Not at that level, not yet. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah.
So this is a great topic, because I actually had a very in-depth conversation with Kevin about this, Kevin Brockman, and he told me frankly, he said, look, Derek was the best athlete on the team, and also there probably was some promises made to him by Manny to give him a chance to display his talents. Look, the kid was electric. I mean, in the year before, he won us a lot of games with his feet. He's savvy. He's got moxie, but he also his height is a problem. His height was a ceiling, because in the mesh, he would tend to hold the ball too often. He wouldn't look for the pass play. If his first read wasn't open, it kind of got ugly at times. TVD just seems to have a better understanding. And to the point of, how do you not know what you have? I asked that very question. They knew what they had, but they also knew that Derek gave them the best dynamic to avoid pass protection issues, which somehow miraculously, as soon as Tyler became the quarterback, seemed to get fixed. And I don't think it's a coaching thing. I think it's a player thing. I think TVD's ability to recognize defenses, to handle the RPO, and to make pass plays that just Derek was not capable of making, because maybe he couldn't see over Donaldson at 6'5", or Zion at 6'4", or Scaife at 6'3", but TVD at 6'4" can do that. Obviously, the offense gelled like it was night and day. Can we not agree to that? It was night and day.
Oh yeah, no. Listen, you, Raymond. To your point, I agree with everything you said, but I'm going to add something else to it.
Sure.
When you look at TVD, okay, again, the size does matter. I'm sorry, that's a reality. It does matter, and also durability. Okay, you're talking about a guy 6'4", 220 pounds, who's also an athlete. Is he as electric and quick twitch guy like King? No, but I'll tell you something that he does have that King doesn't have. And I saw this. TVD has the confidence, not just the confidence, but the talent and the ability to put the ball in very tight windows. There's a lot of plays that he made this year that he threw the ball to very good receivers in tight windows. And I got to ask you this too, buddy, because you and I share the same passion. How is it that you have Wiggins and Pope playing for 2 years when you've got young kids like Smith, and you've got guys that could emerge? And the only reason, and I give Manny credit for this, I have to give him credit. He made changes when it became so apparent that he couldn't mask them anymore. He went and he put the young kids in, because these guys can't these other guys. It goes to sports psychology, like you were talking about with the staffing. I don't know that we have a sports psychology department at the UM that handles that guy, but because these guys couldn't catch the ball. So I look at that and I say, okay, TVD has accuracy. He's got pinpoint, and he's got the arm strength to get the ball where King couldn't get the ball. I mean, that's a reality in these tight windows. There had to be a bigger opening for King to even throw that ball, to have the confidence to let it fly. I mean, that he would run instead.
No, I know. And to touch upon that, there's a reason why they call him Tyler Van Dynes. The guy puts the ball in tight windows. That's right. And he does it over distance. He has a lot of zip on his ball. He can put touch on the ball, and he recognizes and feels pressure. I mean, he stands in the pocket and he waits until he has an opening. Notice he didn't turn the ball over hardly at all.
No.
A couple of his interceptions were basically long punts. But to further what you were saying, look, TVD is a special player. I think he's a generational player. There's kids that come up and get to a level like he does and fail. I think he's going to continue. Inside the program, there's a sense that he is a franchise level quarterback in the NFL someday. He has all the measurables. He's been wanting to come to Miami ever since he was a little kid. I think he's going to run Jake out of town if Jake doesn't want to stay. Pressure bust pipes. What can I tell you? I mean, you got to come in and compete. And competition, and this is something that Mario has always realized, I guess, and he said at the press conference, competition is what brings out the best in all of us, even as coaches. So these players are going to compete in this program. And as far as Manny, I think he held on to Wiggins and Pope a little longer than he should. We had Jeremiah Payton, who left the program.
Yeah.
Keyshawn Smith. We had a couple other guys too that didn't play and they should have played. To transition to the defensive side of the ball, bringing in and playing James Williams, who is an absolute monster. Yes. If he can just tighten up on some tackling issues, but he's got that brash sense of play like the old Kings had. And what an athlete he is. Avante Williams.
Oh my God. That guy's him and Cam Kitchens. Listen, we've got 3 of the best safeties in the country. I would put any one of those 3 guys up against Alabama safeties, anybody's safeties. And these guys are young. Avante gives you speed and quickness, and he's quick to the ball, and he's got great ball skills. Williams gives you range, and he's lanky, and he's a hitter.
And he's a surefire tackler.
And Kitchens is just brilliant. He's like having a coach on the field. He could probably tell you everybody's assignment on that field at any given point.
Extremely cerebral. He's the most cerebral kid we have back there. I was a little disappointed in Tricori Couch's play this year because the year prior, he showed a lot of promise. This year, I thought he kind of fell off a little bit. DJ Ivey, I haven't been a fan of DJ since he gave up that fake punt to Georgia Tech and also a pass touchdown in a game where we lost to Georgia Tech in the first year after they changed offenses from the wishbone to whatever multiple offense they were running. We lost that game at home. The defensive side of the ball, defensive end for me is a question of linebacker. We need defensive ends that can get to the quarterback. Chance Williams is a kid I think is going to be good. Jafari Harvey obviously started this year. But we have Elijah Roberts, who was a freshman.
Right.
We have big bodies. I'm sorry to see Nesta go. I love the way he played football. John Ford's a kid I think is going to get a chance and get a look at a team in the NFL. But did you ever hear John make a play?
No.
Did you ever hear or see him make a play in his career? Big guy, didn't really knock your socks off. Harrison Hunt's a kid that I really like a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's a lot of potential.
And Taylor. Superstar.
So this is what I was wondering. When I thought that Manny should have played Leonard more than he did. He ended up getting decent amount of snaps. Defensive tackle probably is the toughest position to come in as a freshman and play in college.
Yeah.
Because it's just brutal in there. But boy, I think we're going to be scary now on defensive line and defensive back. But the linebacking crew, for me, obviously we need to fix that immediately. Man, if Justin Flo came, if Shamar Stewart comes, at linebacker, what are we going to do in middle linebacker? I think we talked about this in my office. Smith is.
What about Blissett? The freshman, or is he too small? He's coming in at 200 pounds, 6'1". The new kid that we just got, the high four, he's supposed to be rangy, but Keontae Smith is a good linebacker. The problem is, like you're saying, at middle linebacker, we don't have a guy that's 220 pounds. You need a guy that can run, that's big.
Corey Flagg is got some he's got some girth to him, but he doesn't have the speed. I don't know if he reads plays the way he should.
Right.
Austin Cavey is a kid that, I mean, I want to like him a lot. I just haven't seen him make enough plays, although he did play good against he played really good against Pitt. Mm-hmm. He had a game against Pitt. Although, Jennings is out of the program now. He transferred to another school. Yeah. Ryan Ragone came in and actually looked pretty good.
Ragone, and he's a walk-on.
He's a walk-on, yeah.
He's a walk-on. And by the way, Ryan Ragone did it on instinct because he's slow. Okay, he's not a fast guy. He just read the plays. What you were talking about, Raymond, you're 100% right. Upstairs, he diagnosed the plays and put himself in position to make them because he didn't have the speed. He doesn't have the lateral movement, but he played really well. And then you've got that other kid. What is it, Spillman or Tillman?
Yes, Tillman.
What do you think about him?
The sample size is kind of still, the jury's out.
Okay.
I was going to mention Sam Brooks.
Brooks came. Brooks?
Wow. I thought he was going to be a killer, but then it seems like when he stubs a toenail, he's down for 4 games. Yeah. I don't know. Some kids are just injury prone, which is part of the game. But if you're out, you're out, and you can't then maybe have some type of feelings about not playing when you've been injured. You don't get the sample size for the coaches to evaluate you. What I don't understand is how at the University of Miami we're not recruiting linebackers with the best of them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look at the linebackers we produce from here. How are we not producing the linebackers that need to be at the university? I think we're going to see that change immediately now. I think Mario's going to go to Ohio, go to, like you were saying in my office, go to Ohio, go to Pittsburgh, go to Iowa, go to Pennsylvania,
Michigan.
Go to Texas, Michigan, get some offensive linemen, kids that want to come down to Miami and play South Florida at the University of Miami, which, by the way, is a very, very good academic institution, as you know. I don't think it gets enough notoriety for that. But in terms of our kicking game should be stable.
Right.
Wow, did we do well at punter for the last 2 years?
Oh my God.
I don't know what's going to happen with him, but he really saved us in many instances. I want to see these kids just change I want Mario to change that culture overnight. I think he's focusing on that. That winning mentality, that showing up before practice, staying after practice, competing against each other. That's what Miami did when we were winning championships. I remember specifically being at the Hecht with Philip Buchanan, and I don't know if you remember how fast he was, but
he was a 4.3 guy, 4.2 something.
Just insane.
Yeah.
They would stay after and run sprints. They would catch the ball. He would cover guys. Ken Dorsey was a sophomore, freshman when I was there. He would just be working with the receiving core there. Willis McGahee, I just saw his son in my office last week. He came in for an adjustment. He is a 2022 kid that is a monster.
Oh, wow.
I'll send you a picture. I'll send you a picture of him and me together, and you're going to be like, whoa. And he's a edge rush prospect out of Palmetto. Boy, Palmetto's putting out some prospects lately. I think that in the end, if they get the positional coaches right and they get the coordinators right, which they will, and again, the defensive coordinator, I was just reading today that, all the names that are in the hat, one position coach, the DC is a name that is gonna splash a little bit. And I think not everybody's gonna know who it is, but if you go look at the person's credentials, hey, I'm happy with a Kirby Smart disciple. I'm happy with a guy who knows how to run a tough SEC defense.
Oh yeah.
Right, Frank, have you not been calling as a fan? And let's face it, we've had battered fan syndrome for the better part of 14 years.
Oh, yeah.
The promises every year ending up 9-7, 8-5, 8-4. So I think that what Mario is going to bring is he knows how to win in the SEC. And if you can win in the SEC, you can win anywhere.
That's right.
He knows what big boy football is. And he's not afraid to get there.
What are your thoughts on Will Muschamp as the DC?
Well, that's one of the names that was obviously floating around. Coach Levitt was a name that was floating around, but Mario fired him at Oregon.
Right.
Look, Muschamp would be a fiery guy that would make these players accountable. I don't know. I don't know. I think the guy knows how to coach, obviously. Right. He's currently Georgia.
He's with Kirby Smart. He's with, as a matter of fact, he's hired as an analyst over there. And that's the next question I was going to ask you.
Sure.
When you bring in these head coaches, maybe you don't bring them in to be the DC. Maybe you bring them in to be the analyst, because the analyst is preparing the game plans in advance. That's the guy that's getting with the scouting team, and they're getting together and they're saying, okay, you've got, game 1, we got Texas A&M. Game 2, we got Clemson. They're building those plans weeks in advance. How are we going to attack this? You can't just show up week to week and say, I got to build a plan next week for Clemson, just coming off a Texas A&M game. So I think when you litter that coaching staff with analysts that are former head coaches, they can guide the OC and the DC and say, okay, this is what the matchups, these are what our guys, this is how we see them matching up against these opponents, and help starting the blueprint of a plan for that game. And I think that's where Manny and that's where all of us, at the UM failed. We'd have one great game, and the next game we'd lose to a nobody. I mean, it's because we weren't prepared. Well,
the preparation, the penalties, the sloppiness was something that was endemic throughout the program, throughout each game. But Frank, we had Mark Shoup here, who was a tremendous defensive analyst, who now was just named defensive coordinator.
Oh, that's right.
I don't remember exactly where, but he was just named DC.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that guy didn't try to prepare.
No, I agree with you, Raymond. I agree. I forgot.
How do we not execute better? Well, how do we become the worst tackling team in the country with the athletes we have?
I want your insight on that. I want to hear that, because seriously, I want your input on that, because I have that question. You're a strength and conditioning guy. You're an athlete. You see that. You tell me, how is it that you got kids that were tackling machines in high school, and you bring them here and they forget how to tackle? Yeah, and the boneheaded, unsportsmanlike penalties, all these stupid things. Talk to me, Raymond. Tell me about that.
Sure. Well, as far as the unsportsmanlike penalties, James Williams was egregiously guilty of a couple of them.
Right.
He's got to tone it down when it comes to that. I understand what he's trying to do. Two things about the tackling. You're in high school in South Florida. You grew up in South Florida. You tear a tackling machine. You get to UM. All of a sudden, you're block tackling. You're not wrapping up. That's got to be coaching. You got to be coaching fundamentals better. And two, sometimes it just gets into your head, all the analytics of learning a defensive scheme. Well, for guys who have been in the defensive scheme of Manny's for 3 years, which there were plenty, to miss tackles, Gervin Hall regressed tremendously. I thought that Frierson kind of held steady, but these guys were demoted. Amari Carter never was a guy who was going to wrap you up. He was a guy who was going to knock you in the next week and get a targeting penalty, or just kind of be in the area. It's fundamentals, Frank. It's coaching fundamentals, and it's culture, and it's accountability, and tackling is 50% heart. And guys got to want to lay that heart on the line for the team, for the program, every single play. I think that kids kind of got kind of out, like they kind of maybe overthought what the game was, instead of just, that was the problem we had with D'Onofrio's defense. And I hesitate to put the letter D in front of his name because it was just that bad. Covering blades of grass, 5 yards of grass and letting the offense come to you and kind of catching them and making a play, bend, don't break. Come on, we got to get back to the way Miami's defense has always been. Tampa two safeties, press coverage, let the linebackers eat, get the defensive tackles upfield. That's the kind of brand of defense I believe Manny's going to want instilled. And there has been some chatter about, do we go 3-4? Do we stay 4-3? I think this program is a 4-3 defense, but would you be surprised if we went with a 3-4 look and scheme on defense? Because it's a possibility.
I think that they should model the defense. With the way the rules are set up now, teams are going to score on you. You've got to have a defense that can slow them down enough. So for Alabama does a great job. They go into a 4-3 and then a 3-4. They blend back and forth. I think it's
a hybrid.
Yeah, you got to do a hybrid. But I wanted to ask you a really important question too.
Sure.
When was it for you, Raymond, for you? When was the moment? What game was it that you said, okay, I'm done. I'm done with Manny. This is it. I like Manny, because we all like Manny. I like him. But when was it for you? When did it hit home for you that the program's out of control, we need to change? What game?
Well, to be honest with you, after the FIU game, I was devastated, but I wanted to give Manny more time. The quarterback situation at the time with Jaron Williams and some other things that were going on was a little iffy. If you're specifically talking about this year, the Michigan State game for me, as you mentioned, that I believe you feel the same. The Michigan State game was a game where, how do you not go to TVD? How do you not tell the team, hey, listen, players were, Will Mallory dropped a touchdown pass.
Yes.
And it was right in the breadbasket. Tyreek Stevenson got beat bad late in the game for a touchdown. Michigan State came out in the second half and said, hey, we're going to whip your tail. And we did. And they did, excuse me. That was the game for me where I said, I'm just done. And then to not be able to beat a Virginia team that really was offensively a strong team, but such a middle of the road team that struggled with almost everybody they played. I just don't understand. And the North Carolina game, again, it was kind of just more of a trend, Frank, for me on defense. Not allowing the offense to grow a little bit more with changing personnel, sticking with Cam Harris. He stuck with Cam Harris too long. Yes. I love Cam Harris. Stuck with him too long. You had Don Chaney, who should have gotten the majority of the carries. Sprinkling a little Rooster, throwing a little Thaddeus. Cam just didn't have it. I really think the Michigan State game for me was the one where I said, listen, man, you don't get blown out at home by a team that essentially last year won 3 games. But look at Michigan State. Tucker has that team playing at a whole different level. The culture's completely changed. They went from being bottom of the barrel to challenging for the Big Ten division that they're in. They did get smoked by Ohio State, but prior to that, they were a strong team and they really turned it around. Their running back was fantastic. They weren't making mistakes in the quarterback position. Look what a coach did in 1 year. Everyone has said to me, hey, Ray, how come Miami just can't turn it around? Why does it always take another 3-4 set of years before it can turn around? We hired Coker after Butch. We hired Randy. Then we hired Al. And then we hired Manny.
Yeah. Oh, no, Rick. We hired Rick and then Manny.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Well, but look what Rick was the only real coach of the bunch.
He was the only real coach.
And guess what? We had a resurgence of the program during that time. Randy was never a head coach. Larry was not. That was an in-house hire because he was a player favorite. But Al Golden, listen, when I listened to his press conference when he first got hired, okay, great. Sounded great, said all the right things. Didn't get the job done. Then we hired Rick, but then Manny was 2 weeks named head coach at Temple. Blake James, who I'm glad we don't want to spend a lot of time on him because I'm disappointed in the way he handled the coaching searches. They didn't even search for a coach. He just said, hey, I'm going to go get Manny. I'm going to bring him in. I wonder how much he was influenced by Manny's dad, by the board of trustees. If you're going to pay a buyout for him that he just signed, why not do a search? Get a search firm. The search firm that found Dan is the same search firm that he could have hired to find a better head coach when we desperately needed it coming out of the Al Golden era.
Yes. Yeah.
I just think that Manny was hired kind of on a whim by Blake James, and unfortunately, Blake's ship kind of went down with that hire. But I don't want to look back. I want to look forward. There's so much to look forward to in this program now.
I agree. One of the things looking forward, though, that I think could happen, and with respect to Garcia, and I think that he's a great number 2, and he could be a great starting quarterback. I'll be honest with you. I think if TVD has the same type of season he had this year, next year, he's going to the pros. He'd be a junior, and I think Jeff Garcia would be able to step right in and start playing, because he showed a lot of promise as well. Because I think we might have 1 year with TVD, maybe 2. I doubt it, because he is, like you said, he is a franchise type quarterback, and he's just going to get better.
So he's a redshirt freshman this past season. He's going to be a redshirt sophomore next season. At the end of next season, he'll be returning as wow, we could have 4 years of TVD in total. Can you imagine that? We're not going to have it, but can you imagine?
Yeah, but he'd be eligible. In other words,
he'd be eligible, and he probably would go, considering. Also remember this too, just to maintain balance. People are going to have film on him now. So people are going to have film on him. And let me ask you this: do you think that Joe Brady, if he when he comes in, do you think he's going to be a better offensive coordinator than Rhett Lashlee? Because
oh my God, I like Rhett too, by the way. But Joe Brady's. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Look, like you said, you outlined it beautifully.
Yep.
He broke NCAA records with a quarterback who was a transfer, who left Ohio State because he couldn't break into the starting lineup. Okay, and he took that kid who has a lot of talent, groomed him, and credit the kid, because he was phenomenal, and he's in the NFL. He's playing fantastic. He's a great kid. So I listen. If Joe Brady makes it here, listen. Especially if he makes it here, you got 1 year with TVD. That's it, because TVD will put up 50 TDs next year, and he'll be gone after that.
According to everything on my side, Brady's deal is done, and he is.
God bless. God bless.
He is the new offensive coordinator of Miami.
That's awesome.
So now all we got to do is just get behind him and find out who the DC is going to be. Mm-hmm. Keep an eye on the guy from Georgia, as I mentioned. Muschamp would be a guy. I'll take it. Bring him in. Bring his fire. Bring him in as an analyst, if not. But I think everything is so promising, and I think you're going to see, again, I want to reiterate this: the recruiting, the kids we're going to get to sign with us before the period's over, we're going to make a splash. We're going to make a lot of headway.
I'm looking forward to that. But I want to share something with you,
sure,
Raymond, because I really value your expertise in this, and I really value your opinion. I just want to share a clip. I'm going to share my screen. See if I can get this up here real quick. Let's see here. All right, this was on Twitter. And Raymond, I got to get your opinion on this. Listen, I don't like to be negative, but I have no explanation. Sometimes the simplest explanation is what happened. Okay, I'm going to try and slow this down, but I'm going to play at regular speed to start. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to pause it. I'm going to catch it. Okay, here we go. I'm going to slow it down. Okay, here we go. Let me hit the pause. I want to slow it down. Okay, now, Raymond, Gervin Hall is in perfect position to make the tackle. His eyes are on the running back. He's eyeing the guy. As a matter of fact, he basically, was going from the hash. He went all the way across laterally to make this play. He's in position to make the play. And then I'm going to try and see if I can just do it little by little here. Okay, right there. His right foot he plants, and then he pivots to the right to avoid hitting the running back. I mean, he's actually avoiding making the tackle. Then he's got both feet. And you can see how he's turning. He stops on a dime to avoid making contact with the running back. And if that wasn't enough, he deviates from the play. Here we go. Now, okay, this is what I find fascinating right here. Ray, I need your input on this, because to me, he stops dead in his tracks, avoids hitting this guy to turn and hit a wide receiver on the Michigan State team. And you can see as I start to move it slowly, you can see as he starts to he stops, pivots, starts looking for something to hit other than the running back. And he looks at the wide receiver, and now he's going to the wide receiver. And nobody can tell me that this is muscle memory. What this is complete avoidance of the running back. And I'll leave it there. So let me hear your thoughts on that, my brother.
No, it's interesting. I've had discussions about this with multiple people. There's kind of two schools of thought. One, that he just tanked on the play. He tanked, and he, didn't even get juked out of his position. He just tanked. The other school of thought is that he had tried to anticipate where that ball carrier was going to break to the outside. If you were to look at the play again, you can see where the ball carrier started to break down to put a football move on. And I think from my point of view, as somebody who played strong safety in college, I would say that Gervin Hall tried to anticipate the player was going to continue to the outside, and he wanted to meet him at a certain point, like a point A meeting point B. It's hard to say that he tanked. For me, I just don't know if you're on the field, you're suiting up at Miami, that you're going to kind of just blow a play on purpose. It looks super suspect, super sketch. I do think that he tried to anticipate where the ball carrier was going to, and eventually just got beat. He did not break down. He dedicated himself to a space where the other Michigan State player was there. And he tried to meet him at the point of attack and block tackle him, essentially. It's hard to say that this young kid who's been in the system would basically on purpose miss a tackle. But if you look at the video, it's inconclusive. Are you of the position that you think that he took himself out of the play on purpose? You think it's a little sketchy? Or do you think it could have been just something maybe innately where he tried to meet the ball carrier at the point of attack? But you can see right in that frame, if he's looking at the ball carrier has already changed direction. He's already stopped, planted, and changed direction. And Gervin probably should have adjusted himself a little bit there, but he sold out and I guess tried to meet him at a point of attack that the running back never got to. That's my thoughts on it.
Okay, for me, Raymond, this is the angle that convinces me that he tanked it. His head, he's actually looking at the back. I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that there's maybe 24 inches between them, maybe 2 feet, maybe a yard, maybe less than a yard between him and the running back. And he stops plants that foot, pivots to the right. And if you notice, when he goes to the right, he starts going this way, his foot is still fully extended. I mean, he could have tripped him up. He could have turned around and gone after him. He could have done a lot of things. Instead, he went towards the wide receiver. And I mean, I have no.
It's really strange. He continued to open up his hips toward the sideline.
Yes,
Gervin Hall did. This is one of those things that's, I know ESPN put it out there that it was like the glitch, matrix glitch. It's hard to say. I hope he didn't sell out Manny there, the team, the program. I know he got reduced playing time after this game, probably rightfully so, because he was kind of playing poorly as it was. Man, I hope, there are players coming out, Frank, stating that they didn't like Manny. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't, actually.
Yeah, Brevin Jordan was one that was very vocal about the fact that Manny had badmouthed him a little bit behind the scenes. This is not me placing conjecture. This has been verified through a few sources. And Manny kind of downplayed Brevin's NFL draft status and abilities. And Brevin's not been shy about kind of putting it to him. Also, there was a recruit lately that I'm going to get you the name that said that he really didn't like Manny Diaz. And now that Mario's the coach, the tenor of things for this recruit particularly has changed. I want to say it was Shamar Stewart, but yes. I'm going to get back. I'm going to get back. Was it Shamar?
Yes, I believe you're 100%. But Ray, it's not just Shamar. I think there's about 3 or 4 players that weren't even Earl Little was one of them that wasn't even going to give us a look. And I think
not even on the radar. Not even
not,
on the radar.
Exactly. And I think he may even be on campus this weekend. I'm not sure.
He is.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about there's something was going on, and I think that the fact, that you had more talented individuals sitting on the bench, and he went with what I call senioritis, and he had these players that, and you see the competition. It's what you said, Ray. You got to have full on competition every practice. The best man suits up. And when they see that, they lose respect for a coach if they know that the guy that's on the bench is superior to the guy that's starting. I mean, and these guys were taking it for granted. But I will comment on this. For me, I guess I'm just too old school, and I've got too much of a worldly view.
It looks bad.
To me, that's some gambler paid this guy off, and it may have been more. And I'll tell you what, I even said it when we first put out the video on YouTube. If I were the coach, if I were Manny Diaz, I would look at every single frame of every single defensive player and offensive player of that game to see this got caught on camera. But 9 times out of 10, you're never going to see this. I would look to every single frame, because usually they don't tip off one guy. Usually they pay off 2 or 3 guys to throw a game. And in my opinion, that's what happened here. And this guy just happened to be the guy that got caught doing it. But I think there were some, and we had a bunch of people that entered the transfer portal after that. I think and that goes to institutional control on the head coach's side, not being in control or having your finger on the pulse of your unit and who's doing what and what's happening. So to me, that was once that happened, based on, like you and I talked about, FIU, North Carolina, this happened with Michigan State. We can forgive Alabama. We can even forgive a close Michigan State game, but then you lose to FSU. Granted, it was a last-second situation. It's just that the track record was poor. And I'm with you. I wish him a lot of goodwill, and I wish him well in his new venture with Penn State. But I did want to get from you, Ray, an update on what's happening this weekend. If you don't mind filling in for the audience, what's happening this weekend on the campus, who's coming, give us an insight and your thoughts. And when you give me the breakdown, what are the percentages you think that we're going to land this guy? And if you think the guy's going to be a January signing of the kids that are coming in.
Well, let's start out with who is here this weekend. There's a surprise visitor this weekend, Jaleel Skinner, monster tight end recruit, who has been solid to Alabama this whole time. But since Alabama has 2 5-star commits already, and we basically have nothing in the pipeline except for who we already have, it would really behoove him to come here. I put that at about 10%. I talked to Kevin about this, Kevin Brockman. He puts it at about 10%, but he's coming, he's here. And when you're here and you're in Miami, and you experience what has to offer, and you experience the energy that Mario's brought to the table, and you see the city, and I don't know, I think it could be a little stronger considering how much is in the pipeline at Bama in front of him. Nigel Kelly's here. He's a defensive line recruit out of Central. Wesley Besant is here. Mario visited him while he had his suit on right after the press conference. He's a linebacker prospect that looks really good. Cornerback Chris Graves is a Miami commit. He's on campus. Kamari Rogers, a cornerback, he's on campus. Quarterback Jacuri Brown is here on campus, who's an absolute stud. Kid does everything. He's going to be vying for the backup role immediately. He's an athlete. He's a fast kid. He's a big kid. Markeith Williams, a safety, and everybody I've mentioned so far is a top 247 player. Okay, there's a 5-star kid who's on campus that was also kind of a surprise. Kevin Coleman. He's a 5-star wide receiver. If we land him, it's huge. Right now, we have Horton committed, who's kind of a tall, lanky kid. But this kid Coleman is electric. I believe he's out of Missouri. I'm not sure the high school, but he's on campus. Isaiah Horton is here as well. And let's talk a little bit about some of the other kids who we're looking at or who we want to get. With Shamar Stewart, he's a 5-star D-line kid. He's a stud. It's between us and Texas A&M, and I think that he's going to pick us because Texas A&M already has 2 5-star commits. They have a 4-star, 97 aggregate 4-star kid, and 2 3-stars already committed. It would really behoove him to come here. Calvin Banks is a kid who decommitted from Oregon. He's a 5-star. He pushed his announcement date back. Mario, I think, is in play here with the fact that he's familiar with him. Lots of smoke going on with Calvin Banks. Marvin Jones Jr., I'm not sure if you know him, probably do. He's a legacy kid from Florida State, Marvin Jones's son. I don't know if you ever saw Marvin Jones play in college, but he was one of the best linebackers I'd ever seen play. Hardest hitting guy I've seen in college. He absolute monster. Derek Brooks is the only guy that I would say is probably overall a better linebacker in college from what I've seen on Florida State's squad. He's a legacy to Florida State, but you never know. Anthony Lucas has a commit date of the 15th. He's a legacy defensive lineman at Miami. He was headed to A&M, but we could move in here. He's a stud. Earl Little Jr., as you mentioned before, also was on his way out in terms of Miami. Now he's on his way back in. Mario went and met with his dad. And when you have that former Hurricane player and former Hurricane player who's now the head coach getting together in the living room, that's going to be tough to avoid. Again, anything can happen, but we like our chances now with him to come here. Kamari Rogers, as I said, is on campus. Javante Barnes is a running back out of Vegas. He's a kid that we're looking at. He was interested prior, and now that Mario's here, if he gets a visit this weekend, which I'm not sure if he's here, he could commit. Another kid out of STA, Julian Armella. He's an offensive line. He's an FSU legacy. Keep a close eye on this one. He's still leaning FSU, but maybe Mario can get in there as an offensive lineman himself and make a difference playing that, portraying the role that we really need to shore up our trenches, which he mentioned that on College Game Day today, that it starts in the trenches. And that's obviously true. TJ Dudley is a linebacker stud. He's a decommit from Oregon. No smoke here yet, but again, you never know. Malik Agbo, who is and also a very good player. He's leaning towards Texas, but we're still going to try to make headway with him. Landon Ibieta, he's a wide receiver. He was us all the way. I believe he's going to decommit if he hasn't already, and he's probably going to go to LSU. Jaden Gibson is a decommit from UF. We will make a run at him. Obviously, I mentioned Horton. He's a commit to UM right now. He's on campus. Kevin Coleman. And A.J. Johnson's a local kid, 6'2", 205-pound wide receiver, local South Florida kid who we're going to make a run at as well. Any one of 2 or 3 of those players that is already not a commit would really send messages that, hey, Mario is the real recruiter that we thought he was, and he can close on this class. And don't forget the use of the portal. Even though Mario stated that he doesn't that's not how you build a program, because our class was kind of and that's another thing we haven't talked about is how Manny had this class positioned. We were like in the mid 50s, Frank. How we finish this class is going to speak volumes, and I think we have a lot of momentum. So if we can get a few of the kids that are not committed to kind of flip and come here, I think we have a lot of potential with some really big time players, not just some average players. But I don't know what Manny was doing in terms of recruiting. It seems like we just were not making headway with kids, and maybe it was because of the way that we were playing. Maybe we weren't winning enough. We started 2-4 this year, and winning does affect the way that a recruit thinks. They want to be associated with winners, and Miami to these kids is not the Miami that it is to me and you.
Right.
They don't really remember what it was like in the Orange Bowl from the mid 80s to 2000. They weren't even born. So they don't understand how special this place was, the type of commitment, the type of work ethic, and the success we had. But then again, if you walk through the HECT and you see it, and you see all the NFL guys that are currently in the NFL and were in the NFL from the University of Miami, you see the tree that will propel kids from UM into the league. And that's why a lot of kids want to come to Miami, because Miami still does put not only players in the league, but players that play well in the league. So I think that Mario is going to turn some heads. He's going to flip some kids to UM, and it'll be an exciting time the next couple of weeks to see.
Well, I agree with you. And I think if he lands just 2 players that really highlighted for me would be Banks and Shamar, because Banks is a 5-star O lineman. Shamar's a 5-star defensive end, who's at 265 now. So he's going
Now,
to migrate from defensive end to D line, to interior D line.
yeah, he's going to move inside probably. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to have to, because he's just too big a kid. And there's another kid. I may not have the name correct. Is it Moten? Does that ring a bell? Defensive tackle?
Not off the top of my head, but I'm sure I can find out and get some information on him. With so many kids in the mix, it's hard to keep track of all
I
of them,
know. Yeah, I'm just thinking it's a defensive lineman that I was looking at that Manny was trying to recruit. That early on, it was a long shot, and now I was hearing I got to get his name. I was hearing some smoke that he might be now reconsidering. But the whole point that you have these on, and I wanted to ask you this too. In your experience, when you have that many people the weekend before signing day, like signing day is Wednesday. So you've got these people, like for instance, the kid Skinner, the kid's coming, the tight end. He's traveling from out of state, correct? You've got some out of state kids coming.
What's he doing here unless there's a chance he could sign with us?
Exactly. So that's my whole thing is, I think that, whoever gets the last weekend commit, usually, unless you're really an assassin where you're going to go to a program on the last weekend and build up their hopes, and then on Wednesday you're going somewhere else. I don't see how you'd come for the weekend and not be willing to sign. Now, pushing the date back, I can see that, where a kid comes this weekend and says, you know what, I'm not signing on Wednesday. I'm going to push it back to January. Let me see how this roster fills out. Let me see how the coaching staff fills out, and that type of thing. But I also want you to share what you shared with me about Manny Diaz and Penn State, because you broke it to me earlier today. So share that with us.
I think I sent you a text yesterday to look for Manny to go to Penn State, and it happened. He's now the new defensive coordinator at Penn State, and I wish him well. Look, he didn't get the job done not only the way that we wanted, but I know the way he wanted. His father has deep ties to the city of Miami, and I know he loves the university, and he wanted to win more than anybody. And I really thought he was going to position us there, and for some reason it just didn't work out. I wish him the best. Hopefully Penn State has a good one there and they can succeed, except when they play us in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
But we wish him well. A couple other things too regarding coaches. Joe Brady, for all intents and purposes, I'm sticky on Joe Brady as being named the offensive coordinator. I know there's been some rumblings in the last 24, 48 hours about maybe not getting done. But as far as I know, he signed. But in the interim, there's been some issues with autonomy of the offense with him. I guess from what I'm being told, Kevin and I had a conversation. We discussed this. I guess there was just Joe wants autonomy. He doesn't want somebody's hand in the mix, like maybe Coach McClendon, whose contract also is getting done at this time. Look for Partridge to come in and coach the D-line. That's a huge home run hire.
Oh, yeah. From Pittsburgh, right? Partridge
from Pittsburgh, yep. Mark Whipple took the job at Nebraska. I don't know if I would have hated that hire as offensive coordinator, but as far as defensive coordinator, if Dan Lanning goes and signs and is the new coach at Oregon, he might take Coach Schumann with him. And Schumann was a guy that we talked about maybe being defensive coordinator.
Yes.
And if that happens, don't be surprised if you hear at least Charlie Strong's name in the mix to possibly become defensive coordinator. This is something that was discussed today. And I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying that look for that name to be in the mix. And it's interesting because you would have thought that we would have named the coordinators by now so the kids who are on campus, the ones especially who are coming, who are a last minute visit or a last resort visit, you'd want to know who your coordinators are, right? But that's not to say that because we don't know that it's not in place and these kids are talking with those people. There could be deals done already and just not announced. So I'm sticky on Joe Brady. On defensive coordinator, this has been buttoned up pretty tight. I don't know what's going to happen. I did hear that things in Baton Rouge are not going very well right now because Brian Kelly left Corey Raymond go. He let him go to Florida. Coach Sider, who is supposedly interested in coming here to be a running backs coach, he may go to Florida. I hope we don't lose him. T-Rob is staying, obviously, which I think is a good move. Coach Feld, the strength and conditioning coach from Oregon, has come on to be following Mario. And Coach Mirabal, who is Mario's offensive line coach, is here now with us.
Mhm.
And so I'm interested to see what happens with some other people. I think they may move DeMarcus Van Dyke into a different position, maybe assisting with recruiting unless he gets hired somewhere else. Jess Simpson, I think, is going to be somebody who's probably going to bolt to another school or back to the NFL. Linebackers coach, and remains to be seen. Let's see what happens. And wide receivers coach, that's going to be a combination maybe of Joe Brady, Coach McClendon, well, I like the way that Likens has handled that position.
Yeah.
Dating back to when Braxton Berrios was here in 2017 and 18, we had the best blocking wide receiver core in the country for a few years, and I really like what we've done at wide receiver. I'm so excited for next year. I kind of want to just fast forward and get there. We have, if you don't mind, let's talk about the schedule real quick.
Sure.
We have a pretty decent schedule next year, as you know. Texas A&M is going to be no joke. There's a chance that Jeremy Pruitt could reunite with Jimbo Fisher. They're bringing in loads of talent. Their D-line class is insane. They're gonna be very good. Just a matter of who they're gonna have a quarterback. And that's a rowdy place to play. If we win that game, what a statement that's going to be for Mario's tenure.
Yeah.
We also play Clemson. We play Middle Tennessee State. We're going to play, I believe, Florida A&M, and our usual ACC schedule. It's going to be interesting. I think that season tickets are going to drastically improve. I think that the atmosphere at the stadium next year, and just in general in South Florida for the Hurricanes, is going to be electric. I think Mario really has affected the energy and the city now knowing that they're investing money. We're investing money in this program like the big boys. We're playing like the big dogs. We're running like the big dogs now. And I think that the country's on notice. And one other thing, Frank, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but apparently the NIL deals at Miami are now being investigated by the NCAA.
Yes, I have some thoughts on that too.
And of course, why not? It's Miami. Why would they not want to investigate us? And then you had Dan Lambert come out and say, all right, you want to investigate? Bring it on. It's war. So, I mean, I love that because we're standing behind the kids, and I don't think anything nefarious has happened. But, we're Miami. It's us against the world. And honestly, we're used to it by now.
No, I agree. I actually think that this could be the final nail in the coffin for the NCAA with their regulatory body. Because with the NIL deal, you're now stirring the pot, not just the kids' future and income, but the administration and the campuses. Okay. So now, because everybody's gearing up to, brand the universities, to put out to increase their revenue from the TV, from everything else. And you start messing with that. I think the NCAA is going to be implode because all the crazy things they've done over the last 10 years, I think they're not going to be the governing body very much longer. I really don't. I don't think it's going to happen.
There's a lot of talk on that, and I agree with you. I think they're on a downward slide.
Yeah.
You saw they implemented a new rule where you can no longer fake a slide as a quarterback. If you're running with the ball downfield, you cannot fake a slide anymore. It's a penalty. The ball's dead at the part where you start your slide because of Kenny Pickett's play where he was sprinting downfield and he faked the slide and the defensive players backed off and then he ran for a touchdown.
Oh, I didn't see that. I don't remember that. Wow.
Oh,
I didn't see it.
Yeah, you need to pull up the play, watch it. And then immediately the NCAA Rules Committee initiated a rule where if you fake a slide, the ball's dead right there. So I kind of like it, to be honest with you, because when players back off, when they see a quarterback slide out of fear of targeting and unnecessary roughness, you really are taking advantage of a rule that you shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're making a juke. It's not like you're putting a move on a guy and they're able still to contact you. You're telling the players, hey, back off, I'm going down. You shouldn't be able to take advantage of that. It was a brilliant play at the time by Kenny Pickett, but that can't be something that's a thing.
Well, Ray, I'm going to wrap it up here. But before we go, I'd like to invite you to join us on Tuesday night, the night before signing day, so that we can, if you're available, either Monday or Tuesday, so we can see how the weekend went and make some projections into signing day Wednesday morning, because I know I'm going to be watching that.
Frank, I'll not only will I be here, but I'll come prepared with the latest and greatest information I have
Awesome.
from the insiders that I know and friends that I have, and I'll be prepared to give some insight and commentary on that as well.
Terrific. Listen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy that you were here. And
thank you, Frank.
Go you. And
let's go you. It's all about the you.
God bless you and have a great week.
And you too.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay.